Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. You joined me at my desk where I have just been playing some of the hit simulation role-playing game from 2016, Stardew Valley. So I had this idea a little while back that I could do book recommendations based on the person that you marry in Stardew Valley, because I very much enjoy Stardew Valley as a game, and as you can guess, I like reading, and so I thought what better way to combine two of my favourite things than to find a way to incorporate them together. I did look this up to see if anyone else had done a video similar to this so that I could credit them, because obviously this isn't the most original of ideas, and I found that The Nature of Pages has done a very similar video, so I will be linking that below in case you want to check out her video as well. But I figure I would just get right into it. In this video, I'm going to be recommending books based on the Bachelorettes, the 6 female characters that you can marry within the game of Stardew Valley. So, one of the benefits of filming at my desk is that it means I can have my laptop here, so I can actually refer to my notes. So my recommendations for each character are going to be based on 3 things. Firstly, I'm going to pick a book that I think shares some similarities with the actual character. Any issues, any themes, any similarities just between characters within them. Next, I will be basing my recommendations on what I think someone who is attracted to this character is drawn to, aka the things that they like based on this character. And finally, I'm just picking books that I think this character might enjoy reading themselves, which is going to be harder for some characters rather than others, but I digress. So first of all on my list is Abigail. Abigail is a favourite of many people's, including the majority of my friends. A lot of my friends also play Stardew Valley, and I'd say a good 80% of them marry Abigail as a general rule. She has purple hair, she likes playing with swords, visiting the graveyard, she's a bit interested in sort of occulty stuff, she likes gaming. She's a little bit of a not like other girls kind of character, in my opinion. No shade to people who like her, but, you know, she's got purple hair, what more can I say? So the book that I have chosen to recommend someone who likes Abigail is Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron. This is a standalone fantasy book that I read at the end of last year, which follows Sophia, who is a girl who has been born into a kingdom where the folkloric tale of Cinderella is part of the law, and so every single girl must go to a ball when she turns 16 to be chosen for a husband. But she does not want to go to the ball. She is in fact in love with her female best friend, and so she breaks away from the ball and goes on an adventure to find out really about the origin of the myth and potentially how to change a kingdom so rooted in patriarchy. I think this book is very similar to Abigail in many ways, not least because there's just that queer energy, there's that queer fantastical energy that I feel like Abigail has and that Sophia and that Cinderella is Dead as a whole shares. It's all about taking back power. Abigail has a lot of sort of girl power energy to her as well, so I feel like she'd love a story about a girl who refuses to be a princess, going off, fighting against the patriarchy, trying to change the world a little bit and falling in love with a girl in the process. And something I wasn't expecting when I read it in it, there's some necromancy. I feel like Abigail would love that, and anyone who loves Abigail would enjoy reading a story about just a bit of necromancy. Just gotta throw some necromancy in there. But yes, so for my Abigail lovers, Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron. Next on my list is Penny. Penny is one of the girls that I like. I don't tend to marry female characters in this game, I just like befriending them, but I think Penny is lovely. She is the teacher in Pelican Town, where Stardew Valley is set. She teaches the 2 little kids in the village, she loves reading, and she's quite lonely. She has a fairly troubled home life. Her mother is an alcoholic and her father is out of the picture, and all she really wants is just to be happy, and I just think she's the sweetest. So the book that I am recommending both for her and for lovers of her is Words in Deep Blue by Kath Crowley. This is one of my favourite books ever, so really it's just one of those books that I would recommend to anyone, because please, more people need to read this. This is the story of Rachel Sweetie, who has just returned to her hometown after the tragic surprise death of her brother. She does not want to be back there, and most importantly, she does not want to be back there because her old crush Henry is still there, still working in the same bookshop. She confessed her love to him many, many years ago before she moved away from the town by leaving a letter in the pages of one of his favourite books. He, however, never responded, and so she hates him a fair bit. But with her return to her hometown and having to meet Henry again and having to work alongside him in this bookshop, she has to confront her grief, her trauma, and her fears about loving someone again after her brother died so suddenly and so tragically. I think this book would be perfect for people who like Penny because it is a love story set in a bookshop about two people who are coping with very, very different things. Rachel is coping with grief with her brother's death, and Henry is dealing with having been broken up with by the girl he thought he would be with forever because he's poor and he works in a bookshop. So while he is trying to both get over her and get back together with her, he is reconnecting with Rachel. They are learning to trust each other again and they are forming a new relationship. But I think someone as sweethearted as Penny would absolutely adore a love story like this, and anyone who can appreciate bookish, difficult feelings but just the sheer beauty of life as well would really enjoy this book. So for my Penny lovers, Words in Deep Blue by Kath Crowley, but also just if you want a book recommendation, please read this one. I love it. Next is Maru. Maru is one of those characters that I have no real strong opinions about. I don't tend to interact with her very much because she has a fairly solitary life within Pelican Town. She works in the doctor's surgery alongside Harvey, who I'll be talking about in my next video, and she loves mechanics. She likes engineering things. She's really into science. She's very scientifically minded and intelligent, and she loves stargazing and all those kinds of things. So the book that I have chosen for someone who likes Maru is The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. If you saw my video back in June, you will know that I didn't think too highly of The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, but that I thought this one was significantly better. And I do like this book. I think it is very interesting. This is the story of Felicity Montague, who is a woman in the 1800s who really, really wants to be a doctor, but who can't be because women are not allowed to study medicine. However, when she finds out that a professor that she idolizes is looking for a companion to join him on a scientific adventure, she decides to manage to get herself a job with him by rekindling a friendship with her childhood best friend, who now hates her. I don't know why I like so many books about best friends who end up hating each other. Maybe I've got issues. But this is about a whole group of girls who are out trying to do scientific things, who are out trying to discover things and make a difference in the world, despite people's views about their gender. And I think this is exactly the kind of book that Maru would love to read, about pioneering women in the 1800s doing their best to make scientific discoveries. Would be right up her alley. And I think the snark that Maru has is quite similar to some of the snarkiness that Felicity has as well. So I think this would be a great book for someone who likes her. Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. Enjoy! Next we have Leah. I really, really like Leah. She is adorable, she's really pretty as well, and she is an artist. She lives in a little cabin in the forest just outside of Pelican Town where she makes art all day, takes walks along the river, forages food for herself to eat, and has a very complicated relationship with an ex-significant other. This changes whether or not the farmer's character is a boy or a girl, but point being, she has a difficult relationship with her ex. So, the book that I have chosen for people who like Leah is Fire Colour 1 by Jenny Valentine. I read this book for the first time many, many years ago, and I read it because it was shortlisted for the Philip Carnegie Medal several years ago, but this is an excellent book. This is the story of a young woman named Iris, whose estranged father has suddenly become quite ill, and so she has to reconnect with him during his dying days. However, the only reason that she has such a strained relationship with him is because of her terrible, terrible mother, who essentially forced Iris away from her father. Her mother only really wants to reconnect with Iris's father because Iris's father was an incredibly skilled artist, and he has a huge art collection worth millions. So the only real reason that Iris is being forced to reconnect with her father is so her mother can get her hands on all her ex-husband's wealth. Iris is of course then dealing with the very, very difficult situation of reconnecting with her father, who she knows almost nothing about, with some personal life struggles. Her best friend Thurston has disappeared without a trace for no apparent reason, And Iris has been in a lot of trouble because she is a pyromaniac. She loves setting fire to things. So this is a story all about really complex family relationships, about sort of discovering the truth of people way, way beyond the point at which you could have known things about them, and about artwork. Ernest, Iris's father, adores art, and the only reason that he has such a vast art collection is because he just adores it. And of course Iris's mother cannot appreciate any of that because she's just in it for the money, but I think this reflects a lot of themes to do with the plotline that you follow with Leah in Stardew Valley, with her sort of dealing with this very complex relationship with her ex, and with trying to get herself out there as an artist because she lives in this teeny tiny community but is struggling to be able to make a connection with other people who would be interested in investing in her artwork. I think this is a great book, another one of those ones that I would generally just recommend anyway, and I hope that more people read it. But yeah, for my Leah lovers, Fire Colour 1 by Jenny Valentine. And we are down to the last two. So our penultimate girl is Emily. Emily is the sister of the final person that I will be talking about, and she is all about fashion. She is very, very interested in sewing and creating clothes, and she also really, really likes crystals and meditating and all those kind of spiritual practices. She is the kind of character to believe in fairies, if they do indeed in Stardew Valley, which they do. She's really, really friendly. A lot of people like her because she's just really, really sweet. She also has blue hair, so she has the same appeal as Abigail in that regard. And so the book that I have chosen for people who like Emily is Knife by R.J. Anderson. You will have seen me talk about this book already if you saw my video on the Knife series as a whole, but I am just going to be recommending the first book in the series for those who like Emily, and they're trying not to... Oh, it's so shiny. That's probably a better place to hold it. So, Knife is about a fairy who is initially named Bryony, who lives in a big oak tree at the end of a garden where she and a whole host of other fairies live. However, they are not allowed to go near the big house, which is also next to their tree, because fairies in this little home are very, very weak. They have lost almost all ability to do magic, and so all their efforts are pretty much reserved to trying to make sure they don't lose any more of their power. However, Bryony is far too curious, and one day she stumbles into the boy who lives in the house. And there is a little bit of a romance story. It's not too freakish or weird, and it's also got a very, very hefty plot line about the history of the fairies who live in the oak. Because of course, once upon a time, they did have magic, and they were able to use it very, very freely. And Bryony isn't sure about how much of this history is true and how much has been cultivated to keep the fairies inside the oak, unquestioning of things. This is a book that I've picked more because I think Emily would like to read it than because people who like Emily would want to read it, but it's just such a creative, interesting story that even though it was written in like the early 2010s and I first read it when I was about 12, I still really, really like it, and I think it very much holds up as well. So I would recommend for people who want a bit of fairy-based fantasy, and for those who are interested in some slightly mystical, magical stuff as well, just as Emily is. So here you go, Knife by R.J. Anderson for the Emily lovers. And so we come to the final girl of the group, which is Hayley, sister of Emily, the resident mean girl. She's blonde, she's pretty, and she's incredibly mean to the farmer when they first arrive in Pelican Town. However, she has a bit of a heart of gold, which takes some effort to reveal, but by the end of her plotline and her arc within the game, you realise that she is quite a genuine person. She does have hobbies, for example, being photography. She loves taking photos, and she can be convinced to enjoy wildlife to some extent as well. The book that I have chosen for the people who like Hayley is One to Watch by Kate Stayman London. This is, again, a book that I've chosen because I think Hayley would really, really like this. This is a romance novel about a plus-sized beauty influencer named Bee who ends up going on a Bachelorette-style reality dating show, mostly in order to boost her online presence, but also so that she can prove plus-size people can be sexy too. So this follows pretty much the show from beginning to end, with Bee initially getting cast onto the programme right up until a couple of years after the end of it. You follow her falling in love, being rejected, some horrible scandalous plot twists as well, but there was a lot of talk of fashion and photography and about what it means to be an influencer, and I think this is something that Hayley would very much enjoy. I know it's a bit heavier on the fashion, so maybe more for the Emily people out there, but equally I think that there is just enough, not to be mean, but there's enough shallowness, there's enough talk about appearance and beauty standards and about what it's like to be a woman who needs to be attractive for men, that Hayley would be interested in this. At the very least, I think it would teach her a couple of lessons about feminism and things like that, but I just think she would love a romance that follows the plotline of The Bachelorette, essentially, because I feel like she's a romance girl. I feel like she'd enjoy that. But yeah, this is an excellent book and I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. I'm not someone who watches like reality shows or dating shows, but I got really, really into this. I read it in like 1 or 2 sittings because I was so interested to see how it would pan out and who B would end up choosing to marry by the end of the show. But excellent book. I think Hayley would enjoy this, and I think people who like Hayley would enjoy this, so One to Watch by Kate Stayman, London. And there we have it. Those are my 6 book recommendations, each for whoever you choose to marry out of The Bachelorettes on Stardew Valley. Let me know what you think of my book recommendations. It was really, really fun trying to come up with one book for each of these characters, both that I think they would like and that someone who likes them would like. If you have any differing opinions, if you think the characters would like other books, for example, please suggest some. Of course, I was only pulling from books that I myself have read, and I read not a limited scope of books, but like, I know what I enjoy, so I haven't read a whole host of different genres and styles of books, and even just individual titles. So if you have something that you think a character or some characters would enjoy, comment them down below, because I think this is a really, really fun way to get some good book recommendations and to talk about these characters, because one of the things I really like about Stardew Valley is that as much as it is a little farming simulator, there's so much heart to it. You really get to know these characters within the game, and you get to choose to marry them if you want to. So even from there you can make choices about who you want to have in your playable character's life and who you want to get to know even further than just dating or being friends. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did. It always helps me out to see people enjoying what I put out, and comment down below any books you would recommend for any of the Bachelorettes. There will be a video coming out shortly with my recommendations for who you choose to marry out of the Bachelors on Stardew Valley, so keep an eye out for that. It'll be coming soon. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more of my bookish content, especially if you want to see that Stardew Valley Bachelor video, and I will see you next time.